I'm Mike AD, and welcome to the Delta League Podcast, Week 8. And before we get started, we're gonna have a nice ginger ale. Oh, yeah. All right. This week, the chaos continued, no doubt. We'll start on Monday, where Miami is hosting Washington and Atlanta. And in this one, Miami wins a close one. Miami 19, Washington 17, Atlanta 6. For Miami, Maximus Brown had 5 goals, and for Atlanta, Braden Huff had 5 blocks. Last week, Washington's team got into a bus accident in Detroit. This week, the bus breaks down. Maybe they should walk instead. Infernal player Braden Huff tore his pec in this match. Unfortunately, that means he'll be out until the season is almost over. He comes back week 21. Jesus. Atlanta may be long eliminated by that point. Now, suspended Miami player Bob Nyhan showed up and got involved. He got his suspension extended by an additional 3 games. When he's coming back, only Bob Nyhan knows. And in the end of this one, Miami picks up the 4 points. Washington, 2 points. Atlanta, nothing. Now, let's move on to Wednesday, where Phoenix is hosting Denver and Dallas. And in this one, Denver wins. Denver 39, Phoenix 13. Dallas 1. For Denver, Larry McMaster had 16 goals. After this game, Dallas player Shaquan Fast blames the loss on balls. Get the fuck out of here. Now, during this game, a hot dog vendor was also assaulted, and a multitude of fans made off with the stock of Polish sausage. And in the end of this one, Denver picks up the 4 points. Phoenix, 2 points. Dallas, nothing again. Now, let's move on to the Saturday matinee game, where LA is hosting Salt Lake City and Las Vegas. And in this one, Las Vegas wins their first game in franchise history. Las Vegas 37, Salt Lake City 29, Los Angeles 13. Now, for Vegas, Chicky Bajorski and Russie Searle had 6 goals each, and Tokyo Kortelewi had 9 blocks. For Salt Lake City, a defensive clinic here, Hobo Mickelson with 12 blocks, Gilbert Ratchev with 11 blocks, and Moore Scudder with 6 goals and 11 blocks. And Don Kenworthy gets also 10 blocks. And in the end of this one, Las Vegas picks up the 4 points. Salt Lake City, 2 points. LA, nothing. Now, let's move on to New York hosting Philadelphia and Baltimore in the Atlantic Cup game. And in this one, New York wins the Atlantic Cup. New York 38, Baltimore 9, Philadelphia 4. For New York, Rhino Montalban had 9 goals, and Bart Spratt had 8 blocks. And for Baltimore, Guido Nagaran had 7 blocks. New York was lucky to make it to this game as their airplane skidded off the runway. And in the end of this one, New York picks up the 4 points. Baltimore got points in 3 straight games now. 2 points. Philadelphia, nothing. And New York walks off with the Atlantic Cup. Now, we'll move on to Toronto, who's hosting Montreal and Boston. And in this one, Toronto and Boston come out with a 2-way tie. Toronto 27, Boston 27, Montreal 24. This is a good frickin' game. For Toronto, Ivan Jakic had 6 goals. For Boston, Gord Maurer had 6 goals. And Lucky Zanzibar had 6 blocks. And for Montreal, Stefan Greiss had 5 goals. Now, Montreal player Alice Hardman went down with a pec strain in this one. Thankfully, it's not gonna cost her any time. Now, this game also included a hilarious score clock malfunction where someone hacked the score clock and covered it with French language profanity. It was very funny to the bilingual people. Apparently, some French fans got into the booth when the scorekeeper left to go to the bathroom. Those tabarnak are gonna be apprehended. After this game, for the 3rd time in 3 weeks, an armed assailant went after a player. This week, it was Boston player Yannick Lieberman. They did not succeed. In the end of this one, Toronto picks up 3 points. Boston, also 3 points. Montreal, nothing. Now, let's move on to Chicago, where the Pride are hosting Memphis and Detroit, and Memphis picks up their 3rd straight victory. Memphis 30, Detroit 21, Chicago 4. For Memphis, Shep Forsberg had 7 goals, and Husky DeSanto had 7 blocks. This game also included a Defensive Play of the Year candidate where Bert Town absolutely robbed Anastasio Polimu of a clear goal. Have to see this one. Now, Jonas Stankovičius was also black-carded in this match. After the game was over, some pissed-off Memphis fans went after Detroit player Borg Linehan. Fans say Mr. Linehan was crotch-chopping them all game. Sounds like a totally legitimate reason to get yourself a criminal record. And in the end of this one, Memphis picks up the 4 points. Detroit, 2 points. Chicago, what's going on? Nothing. Now, let's move on to the last game of the week. It's Portland hosting Vancouver and Seattle in the Cascadia Cup game. And in this one, Seattle wins the Cascadia Cup. Seattle 46, Portland 24, Vancouver 1. Now, for Seattle, Marnie Johnstone had 15 goals, and Rob Donoff had 6 blocks. For Portland, Bethlehem Cato had 6 goals, and Sid Funk and Hunter Hotz had 6 blocks each. And in the end of this one, Seattle picks up the 4 points. Portland, 2 points. Vancouver, 1. That's now 7 straight victories for the Pirates. Now, let's move on to the standings. Up at the top, no surprise, Seattle 30, Denver and Detroit 24, Washington 23, New York 22, Phoenix 21, Miami 20, and Chicago 20. Chicago's really dropped. And that is the top 8. Now, the next 3 teams are in the wild card spot, with Toronto with 19, Philadelphia with 18, and Montreal with 16. Now, let's now move on to the non-playoff teams. Memphis, 14. With the start they had, they are 2 points from a playoff spot. Boston, 13. Baltimore, 12. Salt Lake City and Vancouver with the same number of points. Get out of here. 11. Las Vegas, 10. Los Angeles and Dallas and Atlanta, 8 points each. And Portland coming up the rear with 4 points. Now, let's move on to the scoring leaders after week 8. Up at the top, no surprise, Pooh McCarthy, 107 points. Marnie Johnstone, 51 points. Giorgio Stokidis, 43 points. Larry McMaster, 41 points. Rock Weinstein, 40 points. Shep Forsberg, 39 points. Hussein Cohen, 38 points. Ali Peters, 37 points. Marty Hagar and Danny Mack, 36 points each. LaQuisha Hershey, 34 points. And Maximus Brown, 33 points. The offensive player of the week this week is Larry McMaster with 16 goals. Now, on to the block leaders. Still at the top, Kofi Dominguez, 54 blocks. Imogen Casely, 53 blocks. Moore Scudder, 51 blocks. Jackson Truman, 49 blocks. Gilbert Ratchev, 47 blocks. Eli Ercolani and Rhino Montalban, 46 blocks each. Jake Freeze, Detroit, 45 blocks. Eamon Rude, 43 blocks. Bart Spratt, 38 blocks. Lucius Floyd, 37 blocks. Frederick Giacalone and Carmelo McCall with 36 blocks each. The defensive player of the week this week is Hobo Mickelson with 12 blocks. Let's now move on to the GXB leaders. Up at the top, Rock Weinstein, 1240. Rhino Montalban, 1150. Marnie Johnstone, 1020. Rob Donoff, 961. Jackson Truman, 931. Bart Spratt, 874. Lucius Floyd, 851. Carmelo McCall, 792. Wilt Davola, 792. Giorgio Stokidis, 774. Sebastiano Guarnieri, 693. And Dos Hawthorne with 646. Now, we're going to move on to the league news, but before we do that, another sip of ginger ale. Now, this Sunday, Baltimore player Arnold Morrell was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a form of cancer. He will undergo 4 weeks of chemotherapy, but doctors say it isn't malignant, it isn't immediately life-threatening, and although he'll miss the rest of the season, he should make a complete recovery. The team is rallying around him now. Last week, we brought you sad news from Salt Lake City that owner Phil King had sold the team, and that ownership group was going to move the team to St. Louis. Well, this week, the sorrow continues as the Las Vegas Royals owner, Pete DeFilippis, has sold the team to Carolina businessman Phil Colaci, and he's moving the team to Charlotte. When it rains, it pours. We added 2 teams in the West this year, and by next year, 2 of them will be gone. Unreal. And Vegas fans were so distraught at losing their team, they broke into the team merch store and made off with all the jerseys, hats, and miscellaneous merchandise. Now, a Montreal Maelstrom merch store was also looted this week. Apparently, lots of items were taken, but more specifically, SLC and Las Vegas merch, plus much of the Tommy Anastos items were taken. Police are still looking into the matter. Now, this week in Dallas, Delta League replay official Doug Barry was arrested. It was part of the same investigation that has already brought down 3 players and 2 officials this year. Now, Memphis player Sancho Pastore, who is already down with a broken radius bone, got some bad news this week. And not only is his arm broken, he also suffered a tennis elbow, which means his season is over. Now, Baltimore player Christine Semenko is lucky to be alive after she crashed her speedboat. Bad news is the boat is totaled. Good news is everyone was wearing life jackets because God forbid you show up late for practice. Now, Detroit assistant captain Rad Marnane has found God. He said, losing someone close to you has a way of changing your perspective. Whatever gets you through the night. Now, Phoenix player Melissa Poirier has been sanctioned by the team for unwelcome sexual advances towards certain members of its cheerleading squad. She's been warned to stay away from the cheerleaders, even if you find them extremely attractive. Or else, supplementary discipline will be necessary. Now, LA rookie Reese Anderson has declared bankruptcy. You're not even a year into your professional career and you've already run out of money. But, hold the press. Apparently, she was helping out her parents, who lost almost everything in a house fire. She has nothing left. She's got at least 2 more years on that rookie contract before she hits the open market. Time to start a GoFundMe. It's amazing how generous Delta fans can be, even if they're a bunch of assholes. Now, Washington owner John Catralis really loves power player Octavian Womack and says this guy has improved so much, he's going to be the future of our team. Now, fans are starting to get upset in Dallas. The fans have started a petition to get new ownership, even though the team was sold to new ownership but 2 weeks ago. Some of the signs are pretty emblematic of the situation. New owner, same old story. 3 seasons, 3 victories. I came to Dallas and all I got was this lousy team, and the paper bags are starting to come out. You know it's bad when that happens. This is just the start. There's 13 more weeks to go. Quite honestly, changing the ownership doesn't change a goddamn thing because they're the same players that are on the court, and that's the issue at the moment. Now, let's move on to the mailbag. Now, Maddie V. We're 5 weeks from the All-Star game. Who's going to be on the squads this year? Well, the good news is for the Central this year is that Denver has moved into that division, at least temporarily. Each team has 12 players each, and each team must contain 1 member of each team and 1 rookie, and no team may have more than 3 players from each team. Now, that really prevents the entire Western squad from being composed of the Seattle Pirates. Now, for the West, I'm thinking for Vancouver, it's definitely Kofi Dominguez. Portland, I'm thinking it may be Bethlehem Cato that goes. For Seattle, I'm thinking we're going to get 3 players here. Pooh McCarthy, no doubt. Georgios Stokidis, who's having a tremendous year all around, and Rob Donoff. Can't say that he's not had a great all-round year. Now, for SLC, we got Moore Scudder, who's having a really great year. Marty Hagar and Danny Mack from LA. From Las Vegas, Rusty Searle. And from Phoenix, Carlo Flamia and Jackson Truman. If everything stays the same, then the coach for this Western squad will be Seattle's Butch Davis. Now, on to the Central, and I'm thinking it's going to be Larry McMaster, Ray Rogers, and Cyrus Holleran from the Sky. For Chicago, it's going to be definitely LaQuisha Hershey and Evan Parawal, who's having a great year this year. For Memphis, I'm thinking Shep Forsberg and Carmelo McCall. For Toronto, not a good year for anybody. I'm thinking it's got to be Valdemar Odette. Now, for Detroit, Hussein Cohen and Lucius Floyd have had standout years. For Montreal, only one player really standing out this year, and that's Angela Carlucci. And if everything stays the same, then Denver's Jamie Stevens will be coaching that team. Now, let's move on to the East. Wow, do we have some young players that would be on this team, at least if I picked them. Now, for Boston, Brianne Gu. That tells you how bad it's been in Boston. For New York, Rock Weinstein, Rhino Montalban, and Ali Peters would be my picks. For Philly, I'd take Bobby Joe Singh and Ariel Vignola. For Baltimore, I'd take Corey Vignali. From Washington, I'll take Claude Verstappen and Andy Awe. From Miami, Maximus Brown. And the coach would be from Washington, Elias Holmberg. But you never know when injuries or miscellaneous chaos will cause the all-star team to be turned completely upside down. Now, Rio Piero Barone. 2 weeks back, Baltimore gets their first win. This week, Vegas gets a win. This week, I'm taking Portland for the W. I'll give Portland a W too, but that W stands for woeful. I'll give you credit. You've got all the pieces set up for a possible Riptide victory here. First, Atlanta has been finishing second all year. I don't know what universe I'm in, and Vancouver has been the Delta equivalent of a colostomy bag. But Portland has been very poor, bud. I hope you don't lay down your Porsche Carrera, but that is a gutsy bet. Now, let's move on to Week 9 games and predictions before we bid you all adieu. And we're going to move on to Monday with Dallas hosting Seattle and Detroit. And the last 2 weeks, Detroit has finished second, and this week they do so again. There's only 3 teams left without a regulation loss, and that's Detroit, Seattle, and Washington. And it explains their place on the standings table. Seattle is just starting to pull away, and the best Detroit can do here is try and finish in one of the top 3 seeds, thereby avoiding Seattle in the postseason. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, but let's face it, Detroit isn't gonna make it. Detroit looks posed to get in, even though they lost their captain 2 weeks ago. They need to do a very hard thing. Stay composed despite all that's happened. I do not envy this team. Now, on to Wednesday, where Denver is hosting Chicago and Miami, and this looks like the game of the week. All these teams are in a playoff position. Denver is looking to gain some ground on Seattle, but they're showing no quarter. The best they can do is not lose because they have Washington and Detroit on their heels. And I don't think they lose. I think they win here. Chicago has had a bad stretch here. They've gone 3 weeks without a win after an amazing start. We'll see whether this is just a bad streak or if this team is losing steam for good. Now, let's move on to the Saturday matinee game where we have Atlanta hosting Vancouver and Portland. Jesus. Here's a game of who wants to win the wooden spoon this year. Jesus. Vancouver hasn't tasted victory since week 1, and neither Portland nor Atlanta have tasted victory this year. The way things are going for Vancouver, this whole management team is going to go into the tree shredder with 3 teams so equally shite. I have to pick someone. I'm taking the Orcas to win the lowest scoring game of the bloody year. Now, let's move on to Boston, who's hosting New York and Washington, and this is a good game. Too bad Boston is involved. If the Week 8 Boston shows up, this could be one hell of a match. But Boston rarely shows up for back-to-back games. Washington has been hit or miss after a really hot start, and New York has been better recently. So I'm taking the Demons for 4. Now, on to Montreal, who's hosting Philadelphia and Baltimore. And no sooner than I be giving Philly compliments did they take a faceplant on solid concrete. Damn, the last few weeks were underwhelming. Baltimore had got 8 points in the last 3 weeks, really shocking everybody, even their own fans. I think the real battle here is between Philly and Montreal, and they've been in that wild card spot now for the last 3 weeks. Right now, the Maelstrom are playing better, so I'm taking Montreal to sneak out a win in this one. Now, let's move on to Salt Lake City, who's hosting LA and Memphis, and Memphis has really turned it around. 24 hours after people lost all hope, they've rattled off 3 straight wins and are now within kicking distance of the wild card spot. They do this every fucking year. Salt Lake shitty, not very good. LA decent on paper, then turns to vapor. So I'm taking the Pharaohs to win this one and start making Toronto nervous. Now, the last game of the week, it's Phoenix hosting Las Vegas and Toronto. And last week, Vegas got their first win, and Phoenix has really cooled down after a hot start. But those middle 7 teams have been so hot and cold, they've held that position despite themselves. This week, the Towers had no fucking business tying the Revolution. This team has something wrong with it, and until they fix that, I'm taking the Rising. Join us next week when the action continues and never ever stops.